Animals can be absolutely breathtaking, but sometimes, they're just downright weird. This video will show those times when animals just act weird. Dragon fakes. Some female dragonflies go to great lengths to avoid sex. They fake their deaths. For the first time, a scientist has observed that female moorland hawker dragonflies freeze midair, crash to the ground, and lie motionless when faced with aggressive males. Called sexual death feigning, this behavior evolved to protect females against aggressive males. For instance, female moorland hawker dragonflies risk injury and sometimes death if coerced into mating. When summer arrives in the Swiss Alps, male moorland hawker dragonflies line up near ponds, waiting to pounce on potential mates. Females arrive, and the air gets thick with whirring dragonflies. When a male succeeds, the pair form a copulatory wheel, using a bit of vegetation for support. The female then lays her eggs. The male was long gone. When she attempts to leave, however, other males jump on her to mate again, which is when she performs the death feint. More than 60% of the females he observed escaped after deceiving chasing males. When the scientist approached these dead females, the insects flew away, which means they were perfectly alert the whole time. All the females who did not perform the death feint were intercepted by males. In the sites where the study took place, male dragonflies greatly outnumbered females. That's for an obvious reason. The females were trying to steer clear of males as much as possible. Goats climbing trees. Goats are fascinating creatures. Unfortunately, they are too often overlooked, probably because they are not as iconic as other domesticated animals like horses and cows, and not as exotic as the creatures usually featured in nature documentaries: crocodiles, lions, scorpions, honey badgers. Yet the humble goat can do very impressive things, like climb up mountains via sheer cliffs that would leave all but the most expert human climbers, with all their high-tech equipment, calling out for their mamas. A lesser-known talent of some goats is the ability to climb trees, even fairly tall ones, and stand on small branches that look like they can barely hold their weight. This is particularly common in Morocco, where food can be scarce and argan trees produce a fruit that is particularly appealing to goats. But how can goats climb so easily? The obvious answer is that they've evolved for these types of difficult climbs and precarious jumps, and have an innate sense of balance that surpasses ours, or that of most other species. These talents probably evolved primarily to climb mountains, where a large population of mountain goats can evade predators and move around quickly to find spots where food grows or where there is salt to lick. They are helped by their hoofs, which have two toes that can spread out to create a more secure footing, and two vestigial toes higher up their legs, called dew claws, that can be used as leverage to climb up a mountainside or a tree branch. Vervet drunkies. On the Caribbean island of St. Kitts, alcoholic monkeys roam the beaches waiting for vacationers to leave their drinks. Yes, you hear that right, there is an entire island of drunk monkeys. The green vervets were introduced to the island as pets in the 17th century when they were brought over with slaves from Africa. The wild vervets had developed a liking for alcohol in the form of fermenting sugar cane in the fields of the rum-producing island. When they spotted a drink that had been left unguarded or unfinished, the monkeys would sneak down from the trees, jump on the tables and start drinking. They were tasting the drinks to see which ones they liked. The drunk monkeys phenomenon has become so commonplace that there is now research being done on the monkeys to test the effects of alcohol on primates, with interesting findings related to human alcoholism. Hilarious hooded seals. Male animals have adapted many ways to display their attractiveness and manliness to potential mates and show off how they are better than their competitors. For male peacocks, it's their elaborate plume tails. For elk, it's whoever has the bigger, stronger antlers. And for hooded seals, it's whoever has the bigger hot pink balloon on his head. In one of the stranger mating adaptations in nature, the seals have a hood-like bulb on top of their heads that they can blow up with their nose. The bigger the hood, the better they intimidate other males and increase their chances of attracting a female. Buffalo phenomenon. Every few years, Americans in major cities elect a mayor. The process is relatively straightforward. We vote and the candidate who carries the majority wins. The same goes for certain bovines. Ecologist Amandine Ramos of the French National Center for Scientific Research, CNRS, spent 3 months observing a bison herd at the Mont d'Azur Biological Reserve, about 20 miles from Nice. It turns out that European bison operate by majority rule. These individuals cast a vote for the direction they would like to move by orienting their bodies. Eventually, one bison makes a move. If the initiator advances in the direction preferred by most herd members, the group follows. If the initiator chooses a less popular option, few followers, and the group might split for a brief period. Anyone can initiate a movement, although adult females typically garner the largest number of followers. In essence, the initiator with the most votes wins and ends up leading most of the herd. The findings could help wildlife managers reduce conflict among farmers and bison, which frequently raid crops. By outfitting those individuals likely to be leaders with collars that deliver a mild shock, managers may be able to effectively control an entire herd. European bison are not the only non-human species that make decisions collectively. The behavior has also been observed in animals ranging from other ungulates such as African buffalo to primates such as Tonkin macaques. Self-eating snake. The Ouroboros is an ancient symbol depicting a serpent or dragon eating its tail. The Ouroboros entered Western tradition via ancient Egyptian iconography and the Greek magical tradition. Sometimes snakes will go full-on Ouroboros and begin to eat their tails, creating a circle. However, unlike this mythical creature, it isn't exactly about self-renewal when your pet snake does it. Snakes are cold-blooded, which means they aren't able to regulate their body temperatures. They need external heat sources, like the sun or a lamp, in the case of a pet snake, to warm themselves. But if they get too warm, they aren't able to sweat to cool themselves down and need to be able to find refuge in a cool, shady spot. If snakes get too hot, they can become confused and disoriented. They also get a ramped-up metabolism, causing them to have a false sense of hunger and a desire to eat the first thing they see. As captive snakes typically live alone and food isn't routinely consistently available to them, they end up attacking themselves. Snakes may also attack themselves if they are shedding and have diminished eyesight, mistaking their tail for prey. When a snake begins to self-cannibalize, reducing the temperature by turning off heat lamps and spritzing the snake with cool water can help alleviate the stress, and the snake may let go, though sometimes intervention by a veterinarian is required. These episodes can be fatal. Because snakes have evolved to trap food and guide it in, it can be difficult for them to let go once they have started eating. Fainting goats. Not all goats faint. The breed that has found fame for falling over is aptly called the Tennessee fainting goat. They're also known as myotonic, stiff-legged, nervous, or wooden leg goats. When they fall, however, the goats aren't passing out from fright. The Tennessee fainting goat breed has a hereditary condition called myotonia congenita, a disorder that affects the skeletal muscles, which are used for movement. When the muscles are voluntarily contracted, such as in the act of running away from a potential threat, the relaxation of the muscle can be delayed. This leaves the muscles rigid and renders the animal unable to move. The reaction is typically caused by a myotonic goat being spooked by, for example, loud sounds or a sudden movement. The sudden stiffening of muscles as the animal attempts to flee sometimes causes them to fall over, which looks a bit like they have fainted from fright. Some goats are more severely affected by the condition than others. Menacing magpies. Hostilities have broken out up and down the east coast of Australia. The enemy strikes from above, and always attacks from behind. Casualties have been reported, and the dive bombings that began with the onset of spring have become more frequent. Zoologists have been called in to devise some means of defense, but they have also suffered from the swift and silent enemy. Yes, from September to November each year in eastern Australia it is magpie madness time, and few people, even children, are safe. During nesting, you barely see the black and white flash as the magpie turns into a flying missile, swooping down on unsuspecting humans and delivering painful and often dangerous pecks. Walking adults were rarely attacked, but children were, with boys, the usual chuckers of rocks and sticks, in particular becoming prime targets, along with bicycle riders, joggers, and posties. Some birds seem to pick their victims with great care. A woman pushing a pram could be attacked even while the magpie ignored boys pelting it with sticks. So every spring Australians helmet up and hunker down from these strange swooping attacks, which have resulted in a staggering 600 injuries in 2020 alone. Fake it till you make it. Some women can think they're pretty savvy in the bedroom. And for one reason or another, try to fake certain organisms. But they're not the only species that can fake it. Swedish scientists have found that female brown trout fake orgasms in about half of their spawnings. During a normal spawning, the female digs a gravel pit for the eggs. When she prepares to mate, she crouches down to protect the nest, opens her mouth, and starts to quiver intensely. The male then swims alongside the female, assumes the same position, opens his mouth, and starts to quiver as well. After a few seconds, the female releases her eggs and the male fertilizes them. But the researchers found that sometimes the female fakes it and doesn't release her eggs when the male releases his sperm. Peterson said the sperm have to be directly over the eggs or the fertilization rate is very low. He thinks the female fakes it if the male isn't in exactly the right position. Reindeer readiness. Reindeer are often associated with a red nose, cue the Christmas music, but some social media users are saying it's their eyes that are most unique in real life. Reindeer eyes are golden in the summer, but turn a deep blue in the winter to capture more light. While it is true that reindeer eyes change color, it happens in the back of the eye, and the image doesn't accurately depict that. The color change is due to a dilated pupil that allows reindeer in the Arctic Circle to bring in more light in winter darkness. Change takes place in the back of the eye. The change gives reindeer vision that is less sharp in the winter, but the mechanism helps reindeer detect motion, which is helpful to prey animals. Have you ever seen your pet or just any animal doing something weird? Let us know in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching.